Hello. um, yeah, so we're walking more into the direction of a territory I'm somewhat familiar with, though it has been a very long time. Um, well, it hasn't been super long since I last tried to make an actual painting with this and didn't just doodle with it. But watercolor is something that I have practiced with when I was younger. And that was my main art style for a long time. And it affects how I think and use paints. Um, you probably, if you saw any of my previous videos where I was tinkering around with um, acrylics and pastels and stuff like that, my instincts for blending come from my watercolor experiences. So sometimes it can hinder me in other art styles. But I'm not going to pretend I'm going to be great with this either, because it's been probably over 10 years, maybe over 15 since I last did a watercolor picture. See if I can get a little water. I'm using the styrofoam food tray as a palette. And I went out and got a set of, and I've never used these, like the paste watercolors. I always use the little plaques, the little containers. I don't know that there's going to be a huge difference in how I do this. I'm also doing a technique that I'd never done before, which was monochrome, where you use only one color. So I put this down as a resist. It's not going to be part of the finished picture. It's just a sticker I had around. I had a rough idea of what I was going to start doing before I even pulled out everything tonight. All right, I'll give this a go. Could be terrible, could be fun. I don't know. Now, I've never done a monochrome, and I'm not big on the wet on wet all the way down because there's a lot of wet the page and then let it dry, and then wet the page and then let it dry. And I'm not that patient. um, so I'll try not to do a lot of that. But what I've got here is a piece of watercolor paper from the tablet I actually used for my oil pastels. So the sturdier paper. It's meant for watercolor, so I mean that's sort of why I went with it. So, and I've used some boxing tape, which is probably not the best tape for this, all along the sides to hold it flat. And it's probably going to tear off something fierce. But I'm not, like I said, I'm not a wet on wet kind of painter. Wow, really soaking that water up. Don't want to blend any of the color from the sticker onto the paper. Okay, so get a little bit further down, I think. And I want to sort of rough edge it on some of this here down. And that's where I'm going to stop with the wet on wet. It is so, I need to get a better place with better lighting, Okay, so I've got a little bit of Prussian, I believe it's Prussian blue. I should have paid a little bit more attention to what I was doing. I opened up one of the blue tubes, squeezed out a little bit, did a little practice with seeing how they blend because they're 7 years old. So I was worried they might have dried out, but they're fine. And I liked the color I was going with. I capped it and put it back in the box after I had enough, and then I did some testing of like concentrations. So I did a little bit of playing around with it for a second to get a sense for it. And then I opened up a tube of blue again to get the splooge that I'm going to use to do my painting. And I think I opened a different tube. They both seem to work okay, so I'm going to go with it. But I have no idea if I'm using the same pigment as before. And I don't know which one I'm using right now. So there's a very good chance that if I have to top it off again, I may switch to a second blue. I think I'm using, yeah, I should have really paid way more attention. This I think is Prussian blue. So I'm going to take a little bit of the Prussian blue and do a little bit. Whoop. Well, more than that. Paint is pretty saturated. Here we go. Let's give this a go, shall we? So I think that's roughly where we're going with that. So we got a sense of it. I think we want a little bit more than that. Darker at the top. And but how dark do we want it? That's the real question on my mind right now. I don't know why I get this crackly voice when I'm doing this. It's not a very nice voice. All right, so go in here, get a little more blue going. Give me more of that blue. All right, so if you want to be difficult about it, we can do that. So how dark do we want to get with this, shall we? Let's see how dark we want to go. Wow, that right side dried out a lot. What? All right, so that's not where we were going with that. This paper really plays weirdly with the pigments and the water. It's pulling out a lot there. All right, so that's a little bit more like where I was going. There we go. That took a lot more paint than I thought it would. right, so I have a distinct feeling that we're probably going to get a bit of bleeding under that sticker. All right, so lighten that up a little bit. Get you out of there. Try not to leave too many like obvious brush strokes there. All right, so what we need to do now is see if we can blend that bottom edge so it's a little more rough. See, that part got way too dark. All right, so I'm gonna take a little bit of paper towel, I think. I think we're still in a good grace period for giving this a go. We go in and we go. All right, well, you can do that too. That's okay. I don't mind. So we can lift a little bit of this here. Don't break the page too much. This doesn't seem like it's good quality paper. I thought this was a decent quality paper, but I may be wrong. All right, so did a little dab there. See if we can get that to go a little bit lighter around the edges. And dab it, dab it, dab it, dab it, dab it, dab it, dab it. All right, so I think that's what we're gonna get for that. And then what I want to do is sort of want to let that dry for a bit. So I'll do, just go in here, lay down a nice line. A little less water would have been nice, but it is what it is. And I'm kind of looking to blend. Might get a little more pigment in there if we can. Can't tell with the lighting I've got how well I'm doing at that. Blend it, blend it, blend it, blend it. Blend it, blend it, blend it, just keep blending. Get it to go away. Get it to fade to nothing. Soften that edge. Blendy, 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 blendy. All right, so I feel like that needs to be a little bit darker, but I'm super cautious here about overdoing it. don't want to go too dark. I think that line is a little darker than I want it to be, but it's about right for thinning it down and blending it from that bottom edge. So we blend away. Blendy, blendy, blendy. All right, so we go down there and we can blend it further. Go back in and we'll do a little more blending up top there. It really is too sharp an edge. Too dark a line, I think. And I am a picky person, I think, because I could fiddle with this line for hours, and that doesn't make for a good video, does it? That's all right. I will do what I can with what I've got here tonight, and I will fiddle with it later if I really want to, because I know I fiddled with that picture I did last night, the acrylics, and I was not happy with where it ended up last night. But playing with it a little bit further, I got it to a point where I was a little happier with it. I will probably post that as an update at the end of the week or the end of the month as part of the month update at the end. All right, so we did that. Okay, so we might be at the point where I can just pull that off and see how we did. I will be very, very disappointed if it did worse than nothing. Wow, when that paper gets wet, it really doesn't want to come off, does it? Oop, oop, oop. Oh. Ooh, it looked like it did pretty good. Ah, that worked better than I thought it would. Hallelujah. Doing good on that one, huh? All right, so this top part is, let's see where I am. It's 25 minutes. Not quite, 24 minutes. Okay, so we've got that. And what I kind of want to do here is I need to top off my paints again, I think. Not plan appropriately for the quantity of paint I would need. Squeeze out this. I'm so used to having the little trays that it's weird to just have to try to figure out how much to squeeze out of a tube to use. Because those trays, you can feel like you've been doing it for years and barely started to cause that divot that forms in the middle of a tray. But I should test this on a piece of paper to make sure I got the right color. That looks about right. I want to be a little more watery than that. I can give that a go. See if that makes a difference darkness wise. So we got that. All right. And then we kind of let that set at a certain point and stop fiddling with it. So we take this. And we kind of want to do a, seems like a terrible idea, but we kind of want to do a mountain. All right. Get a little more of that color in there. I don't want it to be as dark as the foreground space, but we do want it to definitely stand out against the sky. And this is interesting to try to do this. This is definitely not my usual way of playing with these paints. This monochrome aspect especially is weird. Like trying to get the different tones of blue from one little tube, hopefully the same tube, um, of paint, is turning out to be a trick and a half. So, do we go in here with a little darker? I feel like it needs to be a little darker here. Darker than that, okay. Hope I'm not going over it too much and disintegrating the paper too badly, because that makes it for a harder work. Now, I want to stop fiddling with this one so that when I come back, it'll get dry eventually, because I want to be able to come back to it. See if I can clean up around that and lighten it a little bit. Where's my dabbing rag? There you go. That's not helpful. No, 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 no. So see if I can pull that off of there. Pull up some of that paint. Weirdly, I feel like the other night doing the wet with acrylic, that pulled up better than this. I'm used to, and maybe it's just because I used to use a different type of paper and a different type of watercolor, but I feel like I used to be able to just go in and lighten stuff by working at it. But it doesn't really want to do that right now. So we'll see how that goes in a second here. So we're going to pull in a little bit more of the dark, I guess. That's not enough. Give me a bit more of that. All right. Not sure this is working the way I envisioned, but that's okay. It's half the fun of experimenting with something new, is doing it wrong to find out all the weird things that if you do it one way, it might actually do. Like I've done some paintings in the past, and then it turned out like, oh, that is not what I was aiming for. But I know how I could use that. So I think we're running kind of dry enough down here. I can hit it with a little bit of the darker. Get some of that water. See if I can get it lighter. Do some blending on that bottom ledge. Don't let it harden into that stripy darkness. And no points, please. No hard right angles. Not how this is supposed to work. Doop, doop, doop. Get a little peek there. And then I think we've got, oh, which way do we want to go that? I guess we can go that way again. All right, so we can do that, I guess. Where's my water? Where's my water? That needs to be thinned down slightly. All right, so I feel like we need to do darker on that bottom level. Just go whole hog with a nice dark. I guess this is, what is it? It's not cerulean, it's Prussian. Okay. Yeah, the right hand side of this page is decidedly wetter, and so it pulls out that pigment harder. Okay, so we go a little bit lighter. Do feel like it needs another point in that location, but we shall see what I can do with what I got. Feels a little flat right there. Don't you dare run down that page. That's the other thing that's a little tricky about doing this tonight, is doing this on the vertical. I don't think water flow is meant to be done this way. Pull some of that water off the bottom. Okay. Pull some off the bottom. pull some of that pigment off too if we can. We'll take a look at how we're doing on time, because I don't want to run this as long as last night. That was a bit much. And then I think I want to do that one in there. That seems to be getting dry enough that I should be able to play with it. 42 minutes, that's not super bad. So, can we get a color that is in between that and that? That's the trick, isn't it? Okay, so we're at too dark, I think. Water blend that down a little bit. I think that might do nicely. Let's give it a go, shall we? Could be a tad darker. So let's go in there and do our line. Try not to touch the bottom side of that too wet top still. Go back in a little bit later and blend out that bottom of both of them to make them softer. Give that foggy landscape look. Probably speckle this with a few trees too. Original plan is to do a lot more to it, but I don't know that I want to put the next 45 minutes of content in there and chew up the page. I do kind of want to let it set to dry for a little bit so I can hit some of these areas a little more careful stroke. Where's my other brush? See if I can pull up some of the stuff at the bottom there. In dry, so it pulls up some of that and pulls it out of there. Might want to rinse out my water too. My water's starting to look pale blue, and so if I hit any of this area on this page with some of that water, it's going to lend it a slightly blue tint that I don't necessarily want to. Blend out the bottom of that edge. Laying out little bits of color here so I can work with it and make that blend a little bit wispier. So see if we got a softer blend up here now that we can play with it without really streaking everything together. Blend that. Here, we pull some of that. Yeah, that one needs to be pulled up a little bit. All right, let's get this going here. Yeah, for whatever reason, this left-hand side of the page really got damp. And I didn't wet on wet the left side past the middle point. So that really is tweaked with a lot of that tonight. Makes it go pale and makes it bleed a lot, which is neither of those things I want. So got that. Misty waters, misty sky. All right. Do a little bit of the dark up along the top edges here. Make that pop a little bit. Soak that droplet up. Do not play that game with me. don't know. That's not bad. I do have plans to do a little bit more. I want to put a chunk of cliff off to the side in an even darker tone. Maybe a little something off to the right-hand side. And then you probably dot some trees in. Not treason, but trees in. Yep, that was not where we wanted to go with that. All right, we'll leave that alone. It seems to be happy where it is, so we'll just leave that where it is. We're coming up on an hour. I think I'll let it sit and dry, and I'll show what I do with it tomorrow. Tomorrow, I guess, might be a double run. I'm still trying to figure that out. I know I have to do oil paints because I haven't ever done oil paints, and half of this experiment is just trying new things. So I have to do some oil paints tomorrow. But I feel like I should do 7 different mediums for each of the days, and I wasted that first day on planning, and it was a plan I never actually followed through on. Like I planned to do one in each of the different mediums, but the style and the techniques that I used, that I originally said I was going to use, I did not end up using. I ended up doing something else for each of them. So I think I could probably get away with getting my conscience to give me a little piece if I do 2 pieces tomorrow. So it would probably be 2 different shows. But I have to go out. It turns out I don't have any odorless mineral spirits for oil painting. So yeah, keep popping into the side of the frame so I can see what I'm looking at the screen, because my screen is right there for me. Alrighty, so let's see if I can pull this off here. So that's a good start. You could almost even call it a finished piece, but I'm not done yet. There's stuff I still want to do. So I'll play with that a little bit more between now and tomorrow night. Of course, you're going to do that to me now. Look. Oh, I know how to make you work. All right. So I should call it there. This is long enough, and I'll give you an update on it later. Thanks for joining me tonight. See you tomorrow.